Good evening. I am the host of the show. My name is Jay Rothman. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk.
Yeah.
Welcome back, viewers, to tonight's Real Men, Real Talk Live show. I'm excited to have two guests joining us this evening. First and foremost, we have the one and only Charles Mattocks joining us from the sunny state of Florida. Welcome back to Real Men, Real Talk Live. His video is a little blurred tonight because he's coming in from not from his normal studio. But welcome back, Charles. We have Kaimalu joining us from the state of Hawaii. Welcome back, Kaimalu, music maker and cover squeezer. And of course, we have Sunwolf joining us one more time. I've lost track, Sunwolf, but how many times have you been on the program? Do you recall?
Three, I believe, 3 times.
You think this is number 3?
Maybe 4, 3 or 4.
All right.
It
Well,
don't
in any
matter to
event,
me.
it's only a number. Numbers don't tell the whole story. But we are just honored to have both you, Charles, and Sunwolf join Kaimalu and I this evening. Chris Morrison needed a night off to do some business on his end. But tonight's topic, by the way, viewers, welcome back to tonight's show. At any time, if you feel inspired, you hear something that you like or love, please drop it down into the comment section. And if you have any questions for us, please drop it there as well. And we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. Tonight's episode is 202, and it's all about soul food or addiction to the junk food. And what really precipitated us jumping into this topic tonight was I saw a post that Charles had shared just a couple of weeks ago, where he shared something what I call vulnerable and authentic. And I read it a couple of times, Charles, because I was somewhat surprised. I didn't recall knowing that part of your backstory. And so I want to invite you to kick us off, get us hot, light us up, and let's get this show going on what does soul food or addiction to the junk food mean in your life today, and what did it mean in your life in the past? You're muted. I'm going to unmute you.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, Jay, and hey, Sunwolf, I'm glad to see you, brother. I love you.
Great to see you, man.
Malu, man, you're always holding it down. Glad to see you too as well. But Jay, this was something that I want to say I've struggled with over the last probably 10 years, but didn't realize. Now, when I was a kid, I was real slim, real skinny, amazing athlete. And then I started to maybe around the last 10 years, I was hitting the gym real hard. And while I was making these cookbooks and all this kind of stuff like that, and diagnosed with diabetes 11 and a half years ago, I had gained weight. I had my kids, and I was just, even though I was this whole celebrity chef, healthy, this, that, and the other thing, I was still making some poor health choices. And it wasn't until probably 2 years ago where I realized that I had a problem. And it wasn't even so much a whole lot of junk food. It was just an addiction where I couldn't control it in many ways, because food addiction is actually compared to, I think it's heroin, where it's actually, even more addictive than heroin. And I remember I was just, I'd be up at, let's say, 12 o'clock at night, and I'm headed to 7-Eleven to go buy potato chips and candy and cookies and beef patties. I'd go and buy 3 or 4 beef patties. And then also I remember, this was probably a year and a half ago, I was going to pick up my daughter, and she wanted this cheesecake thing that we get that comes with fries, cheese fries. And I remember picking her up, and having to drive about 40 minutes to go get what she wanted. And I'm fighting myself to not get it, to not indulge in that. And I ended up doing it anyhow. And at that point, I realized that there's something that I'm dealing with, because I've been trying to lose the same 10 pounds over the last 3 years. And then I have these moments where I'll lose 15 pounds and be at my ideal weight and put it right back on from having these indulgements of food. I mean, even recently. I mean, I hate to say it, but I have to be honest with myself, because you can't make change until you are. But even recently, I remember the other day I said, you know what, I'm gonna focus on um, eating healthy, and I ended up going the whole day eating fantastic. Had one meal, and then making 4 sandwiches, chips, cookies, all of this stuff. And, so it's still an issue. I mean, even though I'm this supposed to be healthy person, I'm making these horrible, horrible choices. So food addiction is very powerful, and most people don't even realize that you are addicted to food. So it's been something that, I want to really champion now myself, because I want to be that example of someone who could try to beat this. So and I remember also when we were doing the carnivore series, this is about a year and a half ago. I remember wanting to do an Instagram live to talk about it, because I felt like a hypocrite. And I didn't do the Instagram live, and I'm like, dude, here you are making a television show about eating a certain way and having all of these experts and who are doing all of this amazing, transformations, and you created the series, and you are the one who is doing the opposite of what you preach. So I'm actually, it's a burden to actually speak about it, because while I might be a public figure in many ways, I'm also a private person in many ways too as well. But I haven't been able to, and a lot of times, like with Jay, and when we were doing the Real Men Talk Live, and Jeff and everyone like that, when I would see you guys really open up, and whether it was crying or just really opening up, I couldn't do that. I couldn't get myself to open up that way. I not even the crying part, but just the realism of speaking my truth. So, a lot of people are dealing with it, and I'm one who is dealing with it, and I hope to be able to find a way to beat this.
Yeah.
Well, Charles, first and foremost, Charles, before you guys jump in, I just want to acknowledge you and acknowledge that, you may have heard this saying before, we're only as sick as our secrets. And so the fact that you're putting it out there right here, right now on Real Men Real Talk Live tonight, as you did even on a social media feed, that's the first step, is acknowledging, like, I'm out of peace with my own choices and my own behavior as it relates to my relationship with food. I just want to acknowledge you, commend you, and thank you for having the courage to step in as a real man right here tonight on Real Men Real Talk Live. And it's the first step. And I'm anxious to hear, Sunwolf, you're biting at the seams here. What are you making of what you heard from Charles, and what words of wisdom do you have? And after you go, I'm going to invite Kaimalu to step in, and then I'm going to drop some bombs, some truth bombs about my own life
Wow.
history.
Wow. Well, first of all, I was just touched by your vulnerability, and what you shared was not too long ago. So you're still working with this, with resilience and tenacity, never to give up. So many things went through my mind on the subject, addictions. What came to my mind, I'm addicted to life. I'm addicted to squeezing the juice. But there's all kinds of addictions that we don't even think about. What about addiction to social media? What about addiction to kind of get those likes on Facebook? What about the addiction of really doing everything to get to have to please people, wanting to be accepted. That's another kind of addiction. There's all freaking kind of addictions. I was very, very fortunate at a young age to realize that food could very easily be an addiction. And that kind of food is not going to support my life to be my very best. But when I went even deeper, I'm thinking to myself, we all have certain kinds of addictions. And as I was growing up, not being able to fit into the system, I was outcast. I was nervous. I was being laughed at. I would bite my nails all the time. And I knew it wasn't right. It wasn't a neat thing, but I was just a lost soul. I was, criticized, ridiculed, and nervous going into the school system at a very young age, realizing how it was just so unfair because we couldn't really be our authentic selves. That was the biggest backlash for me. I couldn't be myself. I had to just be in attention and just follow the status quo, which was very frustrating. So constantly biting my nails, even when people were around, when I was quiet too, in a very somber situation, I would just bite them like people would eat food crazily until they drop. I did something similar with biting my nails. That's long gone, thank God. And I talked to quite a few people that have addiction issues, and many of them is related to childhood trauma and also separational anxiety. I've heard from some people where they're talking about as soon as I separated from my parents, I started to go back to eating like a wild fiend. All kinds of addictions. I think the key place to start is the awareness that we have one.
I love that, Sunwolf. Kaimalu, do you have any observations from either what Kaimalu, what Sunwolf just shared, or what Charles shared? Charles is trying to drop. He stepped out to come back in to try to get his visual a little bit more clearer because he's coming a little blurry. So he has every intention of stepping back. But for the moment, Kaimalu, what did you hear from either Charles or Sunwolf in their moment of truth? And by the way, before you go there, Sunwolf, I was a big nail biter as a child too. I think that may be one of those things that even my current partner in my life, Mary, may not be aware of. I don't recall ever having disclosed that to her, but I was a big nail biter. That was just my way of trying to manage child anxiety. But that didn't work for me so well. But Kaimalu, what do you got, my friend?
Well, firstly, man, like, I just absolutely love this topic because food has been such a critical part of my journey in my life here. Ever since I was a little kid, I've had gut issues. Like I remember being like 9 or 10 years old and, being at school playing and like missing half a recess because I'm sitting on the toilet trying to take a shit and can't because I'm constipated. And
there's real talk right there, man.
I was so embarrassed of how long it would take me to use the bathroom that I literally would hold it in all day at school. And it's it's still something I'm figuring out, that connection between the physical things that we eat as well as what Sunwolf spoke to of the trauma that we hold in our bodies and the emotional components to these things that are expressed in our physical bodies, because I found that both are true. And I started a couple years ago, I went to a naturopathic doctor to test my gut microbiome, and that's where I learned about the candida and the Helicobacter pylori, H. pylori, or whatever that one's called. All these different things. Parasite. Yeah, it's like a bacteria, I think, in the actual stomach, whereas candida is something in the gut, like in the intestinal tract. And when I first started on that, it was like, hallelujah, because here's something I can actually start to shift in terms of what I'm eating. You know, I can shift what doesn't feed the, continue to eat what doesn't feed the candida, but cut everything else out was essentially the program. But then getting into the basics of that, there's like 10 plus different candida diets out there. And so then the flip side of it became this stressful thing where if I wasn't like creating every single meal I was eating and was very aware of every single thing that I was putting into it, I wouldn't feel comfortable eating anything. And that was hard as a gigging musician because I, you know, drive to the other side of the island to play a gig and, you know, could never eat out, could never eat at someone's place because there was this fear every time that I ate something that wasn't like in line with this certain diet. And then I found another naturopath who told me that one can have candida outbreaks from stress alone, even if their diet is perfect. And that was a big mental shift for me around not feeling like the world was going to end just because I had one thing that caused a flare up one time. Like I would put months and months and months into trying to clear this candida overgrowth and then would eat one thing that would cause a flare up, you know, this like bloating and brain fog and all of this. And I'd freak out. I would think that the world was falling apart. And I noticed that there was a direct correlation to me freaking out about the bloating and the bloating persisting. So it's it's something I'm still exploring too, man. Now I would say
with your relationship with food, that is.
Yeah. I'm much less militant now. I have figured out the diet, like what I can eliminate when I do have a flare up, the core foods that seem to work for me. And then, you know, I reintroduce things here and there and see how that feels. And if it doesn't work, then I strip it back. But sometimes recently I tried to reintroduce dates because I heard of all these health benefits. And dates are high in sugar. And so, of course, not eating a lot of sugar to try and get rid of this candida, eating dates, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I overate the dates. And then even though I was bloating, I was like, well, I still have these dates in the fridge. I'm going to eat them. And then that went on for like a week or two. And then I bought more dates. And then I was just like, my mood's off. My brain is foggy. I feel depressed. I feel in this weird relationship with a date now. So it's like, it's still,
you're having a date,
it's still
with
there,
the
and I'm still, yeah, my date with the date.
Soak the dates and drink the water. You'll get the same hit.
And I'd like to jump into as well because you know what, this is a life and death topic. You know, because I recently had a cousin who was probably about 50 years old who just literally died, and it was from poor health choices. He was severely overweight. He, you know, was dealing with a bunch of health issues that just came up. I mean, he literally should still be here right now and probably have at least another 30 years. And it makes no sense. There are so many people who are dealing with an addiction, especially when we talk about food. Because when we look at all this rise in GLP-1 drugs such as Ozempic and Wegovy and everything like that, which is now reaching over $100 billion in business, you know, the core portion of this is unhealthy relationships with food. If we didn't eat that way, if we weren't addicted to all these fast foods and junk foods and processed foods, and if we weren't inundated by watching something, you know, on Instagram or on YouTube or on Facebook where food pops up all the time, and we wake up at times thinking about what we're eating for lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We go to bed wondering what we're gonna, you know, at times where people go to bed wondering what they're gonna eat tomorrow. And can't wait to rush out and eat unhealthy foods. You know, and as humans, we really don't need to eat as much as we do. I do fast a lot, and I'll go, you know, I'll do a 24-hour fast or I'll do a 16-hour fast. Fantastic. And then all of a sudden, this addiction pops up where I destroy all the hard work that I did over that 16 hours. I'll do I'll do a 3-day fast and then destroy it overnight. And you know, it's one of those things where you're just like, you know, we're really being attacked by the sugar and the processed food. We even know that sugar fuels cancer, and but yet we still consume. We know that we've seen people who take insulin and who are dealing with high blood pressure, diabetes, and other comorbidities, and still are jumping into eating unhealthy food as they're injecting themselves with insulin.
Yeah. I want to go ahead, Kaimalu. What do you got?
I really hear everything you're saying, Charles. The food industry, I think, especially in the United States, to me, it's like, I feel like a lot of these things are comparable to crimes against humanity and what they're actually able to like put on the shelves and advertise as health foods, and all the ways they can like sneak it around to try to make it seem like it's healthy when it's not. And I mean, just like finding out the food pyramid was a lie was like such a wake up moment for me. And then there's like this flip side that I do not at all propose people eat fast food. But stress is also a massive contributor to things like cancer and to just pretty much every healthy function in the human body. So yeah, I guess that's a question that I have for everybody here is like how, if they have found balance, or just what their thoughts are on that balance of like being conscious about.
And I'll say this because obviously I can't be on too long because I gotta, you know, I'm in Panera right now and then they close at 9:30. But you know, one of the things is that even with me, there's times, guys, where I feel literally like I'm taking my life because this food is so bad. And when I eat some of this stuff, I'm like, dude, you are killing yourself right now. And you know what? You know, people don't have to have the same addiction that I have to still make unhealthy choices. You know, because you could make unhealthy choices without being addicted. You can, you know, go to the church barbecue, right, and then go home and eat. Then wake up in the morning and eat something, and you have your snack. All of this stuff is and those unhealthy choices are still killing us. You don't have to be addicted to food, even if you think that you're eating healthy. Because I used to think that I was eating healthy. I remember there was a time where I used to drink ginger ale because I thought it was healthier than normal soda because it had ginger in it.
That's a good start. It's a start.
And so anybody listening to this right now, you know, if you're eating, I hate to say, if you're eating that bagel, if you're eating, you know, the cereal, the Fruit Loops, if you're eating, you know, the carbs in the breads, and you're eating all of this stuff like that, that is also contributing to poor health and poor health choices.
Mm-hmm.
If you're eating and you're finding yourself, you know, waking up in the middle of the night to go get something to eat that you know you shouldn't be eating, these are poor health choices. So while mine is more of an addiction that I'm trying to fight, and God knows I don't know how I'm beat it. I'm still working on it, and I'm actually working on a television show right now based on food addiction. And we've teamed up with some of the biggest names in the business and in food addiction, and we've got some big calls with Nova Nordis and Eli Lilly to get the show on the road, and I might be one of the guests just because I think it would be more powerful for somebody who creates these shows to be on it, to understand unhealthy relationships with food and the poor choices that we make every day. So
yeah, got it. Yeah, Charles, I want to jump in because before you head out, I know you're going to be leaving a little early. I want to share a few tips, tricks, and tools. At least from my experience, I was once a fast food junkie. I was once pushing a 45-inch waist. I was technically considered legally obese. And it's not something that just appeared overnight. It's something that started, that went all the way back to my childhood, as you alluded to, Sunwolf. And what I didn't know was that I was just feeding the beast within me. I was trying to reward myself with something called food that gave me a false sense of being okay. And I got hooked. I mean, I had medical conditions from high blood pressure to diabetes to heart disease and a few others. And the majority of the conditions I had, I no longer have today because I got educated on food, nutrition. And what I didn't understand is that I'm one of those people that the body doesn't always speak to you or tell you. What's called anti-somatic, meaning I don't show the symptoms until I've got the condition. And so it's important to understand, just because your body's not screaming at you or speaking to you yet, it's speaking to you internally. And by the time some of us find out about it, we're deep into a medical condition or disease. And one of the things I did too, Charles, was I had to understand that my relationship with food was totally attached to my relationship with myself, my unhealed childhood core wounds and experiences that went back to being at the dinner table with mom and dad and all the stuff that went down on the playground and all the other traumas that impacted my life. However, I will say this, is that when I started on my journey of healing, I began to understand how critical nutrition, food, was going to either help me heal or it was going to take me out. And one of the things I also embraced was what's called portion control. I used to eat off of a regular sized dinner plate, and then I'd go back for seconds. And one of the first things I embraced was getting rid of the dinner plate and eating a portion control off of a salad plate. So right there, I'm reducing the intake of food, intake of calories. That's number one, as I managed my intake. Portion control is a big one. Secondarily was learning how can I have a healthy relationship, a new relationship with healthier food choices, where I still can reward a part of myself that was always craving that fast food, which was my younger self. It was the kid within me, the little child that was still showing up, wanting to make the choices around food. So if I had a great day and I had a win, I rewarded myself, with junk food. The next day I had a loss. What did I do? I rewarded myself with junk food because I had a bad day and I deserved it. Did it ever really make me feel better? No. Did it eventually lead to chronic conditions? Absolutely. Have I broken free of those addictions? Absolutely. And how I did it was I had to first be willing to embrace the fact that most of the time when I was craving and going after the sugars or going after all that junk food that included the sugars, I was making those choices coming from my younger self. I wasn't making it as a healthy man. I was making it as a wounded boy. And that was a big part of it, Charles, was doing the inner healing work for myself to heal some of those traumas from my childhood that helped to kind of give me permission to look at my relationship with food and other unhealthy addictive patterns and behaviors, because we can switch. We have a friend in common, a few of us, that mentioned that she's been sober for some time now from alcohol, but yet she still plays with, she switched. She said in her own words, she got rid of one addiction and picked up another. And that's very, 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 very common in the world of addictions, is we may give one up, we may get sober, but yet then we go for something else, whether it be cigarettes, food, sex, gaming, even the internet, podcasts can be addictive patterns and behaviors that we can pick up. So
true.
Some of you've been quiet for a while. What do you make? Go ahead.
Let me jump in because I got to go after
Yes.
this. But I think Sunwolf touched on something that I think is very powerful, and I hope you guys can continue that conversation, because even right now, with all this politics stuff, people are now have become addicted to this. They can't get this the political climate that we're facing right now out of their head. Even I find myself being absorbed by this, and I obviously, I'm not addicted to it. While I look at this in many ways as a civil rights moment, in many ways, but you that you don't want to pick up one addiction and continue that addiction, right? Because how many people are addicted to watching their Instagram all night and all day, right? They wake up in the middle of the night, they're on Instagram. They wake up in the middle of the night, they're on the phone. They sleep with the phone, right? These are all addictions. And if you have one addiction, whether it's internet, whether it's politics, whether it's food, they're all hand in hand. And being able to, because you said something very powerful the other day when you were on Lauren's show, Jay. You basically said, in a nutshell, hey, listen, I lived that, and it was time for me to. It didn't do me well. It didn't serve me, and it was time for you to walk away from that. And in very many ways, I'm there too as well, right? I've got a beautiful home in Costa Rica. I can't wait to finish off a couple of projects and go and be there at least half the time where I'm not even looking at the news, or I'm going to sleep at 9 o'clock and waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, where I'm getting my full sleep and where I'm focusing on good healthy habits, where there isn't a McDonald's or bad food in the area and I'm eating healthy. So we really have to look at where we're at in life and put down these addictions, whether it's a physical or drug addiction, a food addiction, and really try to walk away from things that don't serve us. So I'm glad to be able to say this, and I'm going to talk about it a lot more because I want to be able to help other people. I've said that in the past. Me sharing my diabetes diagnosis, which I was able to reverse, has led to me helping probably thousands, right? And but this food addiction is also one that, once again, that majority of people don't even understand, right? That 70% of the people in the United States are overweight and obese. And they predict that it's going to be even more in the next few years. So we're looking at an unhealthy population right now that is overweight, obese, out of shape, and dying. And once again, you may not even know that you are addicted to food. And you have to look at your food habits. You have to look at your food patterns and really say to yourself, listen, I've got an unhealthy relationship with food, and make those choices. So you guys rock. Um, um,
Great to see you.
I'm proud of you, and I'm going to follow back up because I want to hear what you guys finished off and left off with. But I'm glad I was able to share my truth, Jay. Thank you for having me, and Sunwolf and Kaimalu, rock it, man, because this is something that we didn't know about. Maybe you, Jay, and also you, Kaimalu. I had no idea. I think you mentioned in the past, Jay, that you were heavier, but Kaimalu, who knew that you dealt with that as well. So I think that there's a lot of people listening to this who can relate. And I would love to see comments on other people that are dealing with this and how they were able to handle this.
Beautiful. Well,
100%, brother.
Great to
Mahalo.
see you. Blessings.
Blessings.
Keep up the great work.
Yeah, brother.
thanks for joining
Love you
us.
guys. Be good.
Love you too. See
Love
you
you
again.
too.
Blessings. Wow. Okay. A
Oof.
lot there. So first of all, what comes to my
Yeah.
mind right away is where did the addictions come from first?
Yes.
As kids and toddlers, we're watching the TV being programmed. We're watching our parents, what they're eating. We're going into the hospital and seeing the kind of food they give, thinking that Jello and fried chicken, it's got to be good for you in a way because it's in a hospital.
What about Coca-Cola?
What about Coca-Cola?
You're still serving that.
So we're living in a sick care system. There's no interest in helping us be healthy. This is a big business. Now let's look at the tobacco companies. When cigarette smoking went down, guess what they did? They bought several top food companies, hired a scientist so that he could develop an ingredient that was very addictive that had 3 ingredients in it. All junk food has this: fats, sugar, and salt. If you look at the label, this is what I learned a long time ago. Read the label and you'll set a better table.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to me as I was growing up is I would observe all these people binging, eating this, looking at their weight. I'm talking about decades ago. And I just felt for them and I'm going, how could they do that to their body? It's the only one. It would be neat if you could go on the yellow pages and look up kidney and slap on a new kidney and a new heart, you know. But man, people are totally, they just don't know. And this message is getting stronger and stronger. And here's another kicker. You got Hollywood people, famous athletes, I'm not going to mention a name, famous basketball players doing commercials with McDonald's, endorsing that. That's a sin. That's a crime. It brings deep sadness.
Yeah,
It brings deep sadness.
I 100% agree, my friend. And I think the thing that's challenging, because I don't want to, you know, create a victim mentality around this, because I truly believe that we all have the power to make the changes we need to in our lives and want to. But it was very interesting, you know, that last year was the first time I'd ever like lived in the continental United States. And to, you know, you get out of Sedona. Sedona is a very health conscious community, but you get out of there in any direction. And like, especially when I drove from Sedona to North Carolina, along the way, I was like, what do I eat? Because I have very high, I call them high standards, but to me, they're like, should be the basic human standards of what we're putting into our bodies.
So true.
And I'm like, I literally can't even find it in some of these towns. So like, what do those people do in those situations where there's like not even organic options? You know, a lot of people don't understand the whole talk about glyphosate and this chemical that they're putting on the food that is a carcinogen and all these things. And it's like kills everything in the environment. It's Roundup. It's Roundup. You see what happens when you spray it. You don't want to put it in here.
By the way, forgive me, pregnant pause. Camellia,
yes.
I want to tell you what I do, and many people are doing. I don't fall victim. Here's what I do. I have more food in my luggage than clothes. I'm known as a happy, healthy man. I bring the best of food, which stabilizes my blood sugar. There's no experience of cravings. And I look forward to that, and I share it with other people. So we could be proactive. We could be responsible. We need to be more vigilant and creative like that.
Well, here's what I want to share with you, Sunwolf, real quick, is that the pivot for me in the change in my relationship, the most intimate relationship with food, was around learning how to, well, first getting educated on what constitutes healthy food, and then learning how to create a new relationship with some of those healthy foods, some of those healthy snacks. Rather than, you know, running for chips and dip, I would run for now maybe an apple cut up, an organic apple cut up, and put some almond butter on it. Simple things like that. That's a snack. Learning how to intermittent fast. So I give my digestive system a chance to kind of process whatever I ate yesterday. So I don't introduce food until around noontime every day. And that first meal typically is a power smoothie. It's made with a lot of healthy green powdered, you name it, it's in it, as well as some fruit. And that smoothie then may lead to a mid-afternoon snack of, like I said, an apple with an almond butter. And then I'll have the one solid meal of the day, which will be dinner. But learning how to create a new relationship with food is about getting educated on what's healthy and how can I reward myself the same way I did when I was eating unhealthy food, but just making a conscious shift into healthy food.
Well,
Jay, it's interesting you say that, because if I may, just a few short hours ago, you and I had an interesting discussion. We were eating. You were eating yogurt, and I'm saying, well, you know, I just had some too. And then when you told me what it was, would you like to share that story, or you want me to share it?
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, I was a few people had said yogurt that's lactose free would be appropriate for me to eat. And but then again, it depends on who you speak to. Three people in the same room that are educated can have three different opinions on what's healthy or what's not. So part of that too, Sunwolf, is how do you discern what is the truth? How do you discern what is appropriate? Go ahead, Kamala. What would you
That's
say?
exactly that
It's
was
very
exactly the question. Yeah, go ahead,
It's
Sunwolf.
very, forgive me, read the label, set a better table. If when you read a label and you can't understand it, but let's get down to where the rubber meets the road. When you read the label, Jay, the first thing it said was pasteurized. You're eating a yogurt. It doesn't have the pre-probiotics. Pasteurized means it's heated, it's dead, it's over. Then I shared with you mine, which was a cultured yogurt with lactospore, pre-probiotics, and it has some coconut sugar, which is blood sugar stabilization. So it's a much higher frequency. I give you kudos big time because you are, rising and going for the better. But again, the key is anything pasteurized is dead. It's heated. All the enzymes are destroyed. Like eating nuts that are full of salt and toasted, it's dead. Sprouted is the key word. I had tonight sauerkraut. I had goat butter. I had some sprouts. I had some sprouted tofu. So that's the key word: fermentation, sprouting, unpasteurized. I don't do dairy, but I do goat sometimes. Goat is 1/10 the fat globules of milk, but I get unpasteurized goat cheese. So much more delicious, so much more easy to digest. Wasn't that interesting just a few hours ago, just by chance, Jay? And then I took some pictures and I sent it to you.
Yep.
When you
Kamala.
read that, you
Yeah.
start falling in love with food. Then there's nothing to hide. Even the packaging, the natural organic paper it's in.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kamala, what were you going to share?
I get carried away.
Well, I'm curious what this yogurt was that you were eating, Sunwolf. Is this a plant-based, like a coconut?
Yeah, it is. Cocoa June. I sent Jay.
Okay, because that yogurt as well, they put a lot of those vegan yogurts have a lot of additives in them and a lot of fillers and like tapioca starch and things that they.
You read the label, you'll see there's just a few ingredients, and that is the key.
Okay,
the less ingredients,
I agree.
You're usually safer. When I
Yes.
look at ingredients and they're long like that, I don't even waste my time.
Yeah. I just think it's important that people, because here it's a thing that I've seen a lot with the food talk of like, people learn something about like the pasteurization process of milk, and so then they're going to vegan yogurts, but like 90% of vegan yogurts that I've seen have a bunch of stuff in them, but it has this hype word of vegan around it. So therefore people think it's healthier.
That's true.
And it's not necessarily the case. It can be worse. And I think the part that I would like to emphasize for people who are curious about changing their diet and eating healthily is like the closer you can get to the source of what you're eating, the better. The least processed, the most organic, local if you can. If you have local people who are farming organically, that's the best you're going to get right there.
Totally.
But it's interesting on like, all these health trends and vegan burgers. And I'm like, I look at the ingredients on some of those things and I feel like you'd be better off eating a regular burger than some of those things that they're promoting as health food.
And they all have canola oil, which is in
the seed oils. That's a big one. Yeah. It's a whole world to educate yourself on, but like the simplest way that I would put it is like, if it grows, eat it. If it doesn't grow, don't eat it. Like if you don't know what it is or it has more than like 5 ingredients in it, I wouldn't.
That's right.
But I want to switch gears on us right now because we've gotten into a little bit of the minutia around healthy eating. But tonight's show is more focused on addiction to food. And so I want to invite each one of you guys to maybe share from your perspective, how can we break our relationship? How can we cut the cords to an unhealthy relationship, an attachment to junk food, so that we can find a new relationship with soul food? Who wants to
Here's
take a shot?
Okay, something a little different that's really important. And Jay, you and I talk so much about finding your tribe. Number one, find new friends that are not succumbing to junk food. Because when we do that, we kind of mirror neurons in the brain with people that we know, that we are familiar with, that are eating the same food. It creates a comfort, it creates a safety net. In a way, I learned a long time ago, if something is very popular and all these junk foods are really popular, it's not good for you. If it's talked a lot about, it's usually not good for you. So I would think number one is look at your friends, because your friends are going to dictate to you and confirm the lifestyle that you're living right now. Without feedback, without um, uh, ways that you could elevate and change your way. So I say number one, clean your slate like cleaning that food. Start really loving yourself, recognizing this is the only body you've got, and invite in those people that would help you grow and learn, that will teach you something that will be an example for more joy, more peace, more health, more love.
Yes, 100%, Sunwolf.
What do you got, Kaimalu? How do we break,
I was having
break your attachment?
Break our attachment to addiction, or specifically a food addiction?
Food addiction.
Food addiction. Well, I mean, I think Sunwolf said it pretty perfectly. Like, the people that you surround yourself with, if you're trying to break out of any addiction, whether it's drinking, eating a lot, smoking, those are relationships you're definitely going to want to limit your time around, if not cut out entirely. I would say be like, educate yourself on it, and also be kind to yourself in that process. Because
Foundational.
where the addictions have, I'll call it an addiction, where that energy of just, screw it, whatever, I'll eat this. That has come mainly from me kind of trying something or falling off a little bit, and then feeling like feeling bad about myself, and then choosing to eat something to not feel bad about myself, or which is why most people engage in addictions in the first place. So, I think it's a huge important factor is to be kind and gentle with yourself, and like celebrate even the small steps that you take in that journey. Every little win is still a win. And even though, I eat all organic if I can, locally, all these things, there's still new information that I'm learning all the time. I just learned recently about grass-fed beef, and now there's like some companies are labeling things as grass-fed beef, but then they give them a bunch of grains at the end. So you got to look for grass-finished beef, and it's like an ongoing thing.
That's right.
All the time.
That's right.
Right.
Got to be
so
finished.
You're always learning. And stress is worse than almost anything for the body. So be kind to yourself, be gentle, take steps in the right direction, and just know that there's no it's a lifelong journey. these things, and we're always learning, and we're always pivoting and adjusting, and the world is changing too.
You know, Jay, forgive me. I'm getting charged, as you could tell. I'm getting a little excited.
Really?
Because people talk about diets. Diets don't work. The cells die. But here's what I learned a long time ago. I made the cardinal mistake by saying to people, you got to get rid of this. You got to no. No, I call it replacement therapy. Instead of milk, nut milk. Replacement therapy. And beginning is winning. Instead of this, that. And here's the thing. You guys know I love sweets, but I could eat sweets that make me feel good and guilt-free. What about healthier cacao chocolate? What about things sweetened with curcuma, molasses, coconut sugar? There's some wonderful healthy sweets that are really good for you. So it's replacement instead of this junk that is empty calories. And what happens is you want to eat more and more and more. It's nutritional void. It's absence of any nutrition. So you're starving, so you're going to eat more of the same. Replacement therapy is what I call it. Instead of this, how about that? And the other piece that's important that we don't talk about is when you see a food, make love to it. Look at it.
Tell me more.
Notice the colors.
How do you make love to the food?
I'm telling you, I make love to the food. I talk to the food. I make sounds all the time. I'm telling you, it's got frequency. It's live. And really appreciating where it came from and having a blessing, being grateful, being thankful that it's here on the plate. You know, God and nature, we're here to kind of partner maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, I want to add on to what you've shared real quick. It may be helpful too to find a mentor. You've kind of alluded to that, but find somebody or some people that inspire you, that may be educated, have the knowledge, more so than what you may have, and ask the questions, pay attention, and then start to make different choices. So, for example, years ago, early on in my my new relationship with food, I was introduced to something called black rice. I had never heard of black rice. Many people had not. I have not heard of it, but I was introduced to it when I went to a sushi restaurant when I was still living in SoCal, I believe. And they offered black rice as an upcharge. And they had a flyer that kind of talked about it. And I got educated. I went home and I studied. And what I learned was that it is the healthiest rice out there. White rice really has no nutritional value. It just turns into starch and increases your sugar levels and all that. Brown rice is slightly better than white. Black rice is at the top of the shelf. It's the brand that I buy is Lotus Foods. I call it Forbidden Rice, but it's also black rice. The texture is different. The flavor is different. And it's got some healthy antioxidants in it. Now, does that mean that I basically spread out tablespoons of black rice on my plate and then vegetables and then the protein? The answer is no. I have a small portion of black rice because even though it's healthier, it still converts to starch and to carbohydrates. And so for me, it's about portion control. Coming back to that, I don't want to feel like I'm depriving myself of anything that I want, but can I have it in a healthier format or fashion and have less of it?
And a point that I'd like to add on to that, if I may, Jay, is, a lot of people are looking for the perfect human diet, and it's not going to look the same for everybody. A lot of people talk about eating for your blood type. I would have to research more, but I believe there is some credence to that. So people, I feel, are looking to health gurus, and this is where it gets confusing, is, there's one person who looks incredibly well and healthy who's eating the exact opposite diet of what this person's eating. The carnivore diet is like a big thing that's on the rise right now. And there are some people who are doing that who look amazing, and perhaps their bodies can handle that. So I think the health is also a huge mindset component. And, you know, being empowered within your own body to listen to your body. And, you know, when you're with the food, like Sunwolf said, having the relationship with it. Even when you're looking at the food in the store, you know, like what is the intuitive feeling? Am I drawn one way or the other? And then having that discernment between what is like a craving drawing or an addiction drawing, and what is actually like, yeah, that feels good and nourishing. Some people muscle test for that. I never got big into that, but I think it's the relationship that you have with the food, and your specific diet is not gonna make sense to everybody, and that's okay. But it's finding what works for you, and that relationship component is a huge key.
And the other, hold on one sec, if I want to just piggyback real quick. The other piece of that is what you both said, is developing a relationship around self-compassion, and stop beating yourself up, but understand that you didn't get here overnight, and it's okay to take baby steps to literally allow your relationship to evolve, first and foremost with yourself, and then with the food choices that you make. And and through that process, you have the ability to not only feel better, but heal conditions that were brought on by eating toxic foods or eating too much of it. And look, I'm not a spokesman for anybody. I don't get paid. But what I do have is my truth. My truth is that I've reversed medical conditions. I believe that contributed big time was nutrition. And secondly, I like how I look in a mirror. I like how I feel most days. And that's not me being anything other than acknowledging the growth that I've experienced in my life. Instead of seeing food as a weapon or as comfort, I see it as a tool for healing the body. So with what time we have left, you each got a minute. That was my minute. Sunwolf, you got a minute to close.
I was gonna ask you all a bit about what is soul food, but we've talked a bit about that. I really appreciated what you said. I forgot to say one important point when you're making love to food and really appreciating, acknowledging, and seeing what you got here. The key is chew your liquids and drink your solids. I learned that decades ago from a well-known herbalist. Chew your liquids and drink your solids. That'll make a big difference, and your digestive system will work a lot better, a lot easily. You'll be more full, more satisfied, and I think beginning is winning. We need to be kind to ourselves. I love what you both shared, and we have to be careful of one last piece, which is kind of common in the human race. We got to be careful about not comparing ourselves with others. We're all on our own journey, and we want to embrace that. And we want to be able to really feel the different foods that really work for us. We also want to acknowledge that when we have a craving for something, that usually means we are allergic to that craving. So, yeah, and that's what it's really about. It's great to have a show like this and all your shows, Jay. I so appreciate you, Camila, and great show tonight.
Kaimalu, want to wrap us up? What do you got? Closing thoughts?
Bring
it home, brother.
I really had much more to add to that, man. I mean,
well, I don't. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
This is
the first time I'm seeing you speechless.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, what is that?
Yeah.
It's okay.
I mean,
okay. Go ahead.
I'm just being reminded that, like, it's so important to be in love with your life. Every aspect of your life, everything that you do. I think that's the bottom question. And this is what most people talk about in the spiritual community. Are you doing it out of love, or are you trying to fill a void? And whether it's food, sex, drugs, alcohol, all of these things, everything in life can be done one of two ways. And that's where the discernment piece comes in. So, you know, whatever you're putting in your body, whichever dietary path you choose, whatever path in life you choose, just be in love with it and make sure that you're in love with it. And if you're not, then make a change.
Amen. Hallelujah. Yeah, I like it. Let's do it, baby. Let's love myself. Hey, amen. Yeah.
Well, let me reel us go back into reality right here. Well, first I want to. Wow, that was so profound. For someone who was speechless for a moment, somehow you did a hell of a job recovering, and not only that, you brought Son Wolf and I into a dance mode in that moment, and it's not the first time he and I have danced together, and it most likely won't be the last time either. But what I do want to say is, from the bottom of my heart, the two of you have had such an impact in my own health and wellness, in many different ways. And I just want to acknowledge the two of you. I want to thank you both for not only showing up on Real Men Real Talk Live, but showing up on Divine Time in my life, in moments when I've seeken counsel, I've seeken mentorship, I've seeken inspiration, and most importantly, I seek love from the two of you. And both of you have so much love in your heart that you openly share and continue to have shared. And for that, I put into words what I'm feeling, but there's so much more to it than that. I want to, again, thank all of our viewers for joining us this evening. I want to thank the two of you, including Charles Mattocks, for joining us for most of the show here tonight. Viewers, we hope you join us next week. Another episode of Stay in the Studio, gentlemen, just for a few minutes, if you don't mind. Want to invite the viewers, if you should have heard something you'd like to love, please share it out with your own friends and family. Perhaps maybe tonight's show will make a difference in the life of someone you care deeply for. And with that, viewers, thanks for joining us again on Real Men Real Talk Live.